Well, hello! Welcome to another studio vlog. We are in the final countdown of preparation to the Texas Miniature Showcase, which is happening in less than 2 weeks. About a week and a half when I'm filming this. I have a lot to do. The week that I'm starting to record this, I need to wrap up 2 new kits. I need to finish up the birdcage kit that I mentioned in my previous video where I was working on the fireplace room, and I need to write directions and wrap up the chandelier kit. Both of those are going to be featured in my fireplace room, and I know I'm going to get questions about them and people will be interested, so I would love to have kits available. As you can see, I have my hair up. I am ready to get to work, and actually I'm about to cut all of this hair off. Having long hair is not for the faint of heart. I am about done with it and I'm about to just chop it off. Anyway, without further ado, what I'm going to be working on now is making sure that I take photos of my process of putting together this birdcage kit so that I can create instructions. Also, my toner ran out this week, so I have just a couple days before my toner comes in, so I have a freeze on printing all instructions, all labels that I need to make for the show until my new toner comes in. But it'll be fine. It'll be on time. The shipment will be on time. That's what I keep telling myself. And then next week I need to do a practice setup where I put my table out and I set every single thing up so that I can see how it's going to look once I'm at the show. So I guess the only thing left to do is to do all of this, and let's start with building the birdcage. I'm not going to show every single step of putting the birdcage together because eventually I will be creating the instructional video, which will go over on my Bentley House Kits YouTube channel. And that just has videos that's strictly instructions for my kits. They're a little more dry, not as much fun as the videos over here, but you're welcome to go watch and see how any of the kits go together. I always love when I can create a kit with a tool that's reusable. So this kit uses a really simple 3D printed loom to create the individual bars for the birdcage. So I'm first going to loop the string around the loom and then let the sides of the birdcage dry on the string. I'm also creating the base, which has a pull-out drawer so that you can change the lining for your miniature bird. Once the strings were dry, I could cut them off of the loom and trim them down so that they were the size of the birdcage walls. You might have noticed on the loom tool that you could wrap it in both directions, and that's because I do need to create a crisscross grid with my string for the very top of the birdcage. In order to do this, I'm using some glue on my fingertip to attach the strings together and allow them to dry. While that's drying, I can go ahead and construct the birdcage body. And after waiting for all of that string to dry, this felt like it went really quickly and the birdcage started to come together. This is the 3rd or 4th time that I have put this birdcage kit together, and the previous times I've put it together on live stream with my Patreon community, and they had so many great ideas that just made this kit better and better. And so putting it together for this final time went incredibly smooth, and I am so happy with the outcome. I added the grid to the 3D printed top of the birdcage, and then there is a finial piece that gets glued in the center of the top of the lid. This is what I've got so far. This process is taking a while, but that is because I am filming for the video directions. I am taking photos for the written directions, and I am handwriting the directions as I go. So this evening what I'll do is I'll just get like all snuggled up in bed with my laptop and type out all of these directions and then start to insert the photos. This birdcage kit is going to come with this little loom tool, which is really helpful. Now the difficult thing has been to know how much string to send in the kit so that someone can reproduce the kit like so. So what I have done is ordered one of those embroidery thread tools where you can like wind up the embroidery thread on, this is one of the little windy things that I was talking about. You just wind the string up on there, and I found that 120 wraps of this seems to be enough to do this kit. Actually, I think 100 wraps is enough, but I went ahead and did 120 just in case someone has to re-wrap. I don't know. But that does take a little while to do, but each kit will come with this much string. Alright, I'm just waiting for this to dry and then I can paint it. I've already painted one gold. I have found that on my instruction videos, whenever I paint something black, which this is a black base coat with gold on top, it doesn't show up on camera very well. So I'm going to paint this one red. I think it'll be fun. I did end up going with red, but it was a really dark red, so the black and white photos that I use in my instructions still ended up pretty dark, so I'll just have to keep that in mind. I wanted to show two different ways that you could do the door. It can be made shut or it can be created open. I don't have hinges small enough to where you could actually open and close it, but the little drawer that goes underneath the birdcage can be opened and closed. I didn't have any newspaper print, which I thought would be good for the bottom of the birdcage, but I did have this like paper that looked like it was handwritten, so that is inside of the cage. I also wanted to create a bird. This is the first animal I have ever sculpted in 3D in a computer program. I was actually pretty proud of it. It's a chunky little blue bird. I just thought it would be really fun to be able to include a bird of my own design if possible, and I think it worked out pretty well. So I am going to stick this bird on the top of the cage. This is for display on my table, so I think being able to see the bird outside of the cage, you can see the details a little bit more. I will also have one of my practice bird cages in gold for the fireplace room because that will match all the gold details. And then it was time for a little break. Yesterday I finished the bird cage kit, and by finished I mean I put together the sample and I worked on the instructions last night. I got them all done. Photos, the written instructions. I'm not going to have video instructions ready until after the show, but I hope that'll be okay. I decided that each birdcage kit is going to come with one little tiny bird. I'm sure you saw him being painted. I did print a lot of them. I know this is like a little bowl, but there are just so many, so many birds in here. I think I'm only bringing like 16 birdcage kits to the show. So what am I going to do with the rest of these? I am going to make individual bird kits, just 3D printed bird items that can be purchased, and I'm calling them toothpick birds. So each little kit will come with 2 birds and 2 toothpicks, and obviously they don't have to sit on the toothpick. That's what the little indentation underneath each bird was created for, but they sit really well on the edge of anything that's a bit thin. Also this morning I finished up the Beetlejuice video over the lights for the first floor, part 1. And just all day long I feel like I've been going from thing to thing to thing to thing. Different categories of editing, printing, finishing, packaging. I've been working on packaging up the class kits for the class that I'm teaching at the showcase. And I just feel like one of the what do they call the balls in a pinball? I guess I feel like a pinball in a pinball machine, just going bing, 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 bing. I did realize when I originally said in this video that I have a week and a half, I have a week because I need to get to the miniature show on Thursday. Today is Thursday, so I need to be there next week, which means I need to be packed up and done with everything by Wednesday, which was a week from yesterday. So time feels like it's doing this. So now that the birdcage instructions are done, I need to package those kits. I also need to write the instructions and package the chandelier kits, and I think there's a few items I need to order for my table. And hopefully my toner will come tomorrow, because I have a lot of things that I cannot do until my toner shows up. So you can just be in my scrap paper pile for now. For the rest of the night, I worked on packing kits. So this is my fireplace room kit in 1/24 scale. That one needed to be packed. And then earlier in this video, I mentioned the chandelier kit, which is something I specifically made for the fireplace room. I worked on that the night before, and this was the result. It is such a long package, but that is because it comes with a very long piece that goes all the way around the outside of the chandelier to create the look. So really, it could be so much smaller if it didn't have that incredibly long piece, but it's part of the kit. One of the things I like to do when I'm creating kits is to create a kit bucket. And so I just put every single thing that I need for a kit into a bucket. So all of the laser cut pieces, the 3D printed pieces, the scissors, the stapler, everything I could possibly need to put it together. And then I can go find a more comfortable spot to work. After finishing up all of my smaller kits, which includes the chandelier and the birdcage, I needed to work on my big kits, which are the room boxes. And so I had to clear off my desk because they take up a lot of space. These are the only kits that I put in boxes. The reason for this being these kits are so big and kind of fiddly to carry around. They're much easier to carry around at a show in a box. And a lot of times when people purchase these kits, if they're not ready to leave the show, I let them put their name on it and keep it behind my table, and then they just have to come pick it up before the end of the show. And after the kits were completely done, I needed to pack up for my class. I was doing a class on using Whirl to create miniatures, and this is a very expensive pile of plastic that you see here in my hands, but I'm making sure I have everything. I don't have any video of my class taking place, so instead you get to see me struggle with this extension cord, but we had to have heat guns in order to work with the Whirl. It was a really fun class. I did forget a few items, but my students were really flexible on that and were so kind, and they said they enjoyed learning about Whirl. But here's how the boxes looked once they were packed. I like to make sure I have a few extra tools. I have everything printed out in a PDF with all of the instructions. I like the class to be able to happen even if I'm not there. And thank goodness my toner did arrive so I could print the instructions. I'm currently working on my very last kit that I need to prepare, package, and get ready for the show. That's very exciting because I have been working on this process since April. In April, I started just kind of casually creating kits and putting them into boxes. May, I got a bit more serious about it, and then in the beginning of June, I really put the pedal to the metal and was making kits daily, working on them during the day, and then packaging them up at night. And if you're wondering why it takes so long, I just did the math. This is my list that I have been working off of since April. As you can see, they're all crossed off. This is new information that I wrote down here. I have 58 individual kits, and that means that there might be some variations. So like my frames, I have small, medium, and large, so I counted those individually because I make individual kits of those. So that's 58 individual kits that all have to be cut. They have to have instructions added, they need to be packaged, and a lot of them have accessories that go with them. So for example, Charles' desk has 10 sewing pins that need to be included to be handles for it. So I have to count out 10 sewing pins for each Charles desk. So you can kind of see how some of these get very complicated to package. I make between 8 to 12 of each one of my kits. I make 12 copies of the 1/12 scale because it's more popular, and I make 8 copies of the 1/24 scale, just is not as popular of a scale. And this is my first year to have a 1/48 scale, the boathouse, and so I'm excited to see how that goes. I'm going to do a little math, mainly for myself, to kind of see what I have accomplished here, how many individual kits I have cut and packaged over the last 2.5 months to prepare for this miniature show. bring up my calculator because my brain is not going to be able to math today. I didn't expect that number. I have created 613 kits for this show. That's a lot. And this number does not include the kits that I created for the class. For that, I'd have to add another 16. And then I also created some kits for another teacher that is teaching at the Dallas show. So that was a lot of work. I'm so glad it's coming to an end and the show is going to be here. It's the reward at the end of all the work. All right, so now that I've shared all of this with you, it is time to start the practice setup. This is one of my favorite things to do before the show, is to actually put everything together, see how it looks. And it's important for me to do this because I will be teaching a class Friday morning, and Friday is setup day, and I need to be able to show my sister how to start setting up the table. She always goes to these shows with me. She knows how to run the money side of things. She knows my kits really well, and she can answer a lot of questions for people, even though she's not me. If I've walked away and I'm shopping or something, she's really good at answering questions and just like being on top of things. But she can't be in my brain, so I like to do a practice setup, and I take a lot of pictures and show her how everything needs to be set up. So if she needs to start that process before I'm there, she knows what to do. I have 2 6-foot tables to set up on, so I have 12 feet to display everything on. It should be enough. I feel like I should not need to have more than 12 feet of room, but we'll see. Let's get started. When I said I have 12 feet worth of table to set up on, that's when I get to the show. So I have to set up on the tables that I currently own at my house for practice, and I could only get 10 feet. So I think the white table is 6 feet long and my desk table is 4 feet. So I will have an extra 2 feet from what is shown in this space. So I was trying to keep that in mind as I was setting everything up. I like to do a test setup with everything. So that includes my table coverings, my lighting, tags, everything, so that I know that I have everything when I pack it up after I'm done. One of my favorite additions to my table has been these folding shelves. You can get these for about $50 online, and they fold up nice and flat, and as long as you don't have a ceiling fan in the way, you can flip over the top piece to secure it in place so that it won't fold up once you start adding things to the shelf. I already had 2 of these from last year's setup. Well, it always looks like a ton of space until I start putting the shelves on there, and now the space is half gone with just 2 shelves. And I actually have 1 more. So I don't know if I'll use it this year, but I'm still glad I bought it because these shelves are really great, and I plan to continue making more and more room boxes. So I'm still okay with my purchase even if I only use 2. My first goal in setting up is to get all of the big display pieces out on the table. This is the final big thing that I needed to put out to help me get a feel for how my table is going to be set up. So I still have 1 more shelf that I can put out here, and then I do have more of these file folders. These actually hold my larger kits so people can look through them and see what there is. I like having them on the table because it allows people to see that my items are kits and not, they can't buy the finished piece. So right now, I know I need more pegboard space. I did buy some more pegboard, so I need to make this bigger. Probably need to add 1 more of these, and I'm not sure if this is enough shelf space yet or not. So that's what I'm working with. I think I'm going to play around with some different ideas on maybe I don't have these out this year. I don't know. It's a difficult thing when you sell kits because you want people to see what the finished item can look like. but a lot of people come to your table and want to buy the finished items. And if you tell them it's a kit, they walk away. And then people who are looking for kits, if they see the finished items and not the kits, then they are like, well, I don't want finished items, I want kits. So it's a confusing spot to be in. I just added in my star of the show, my little fireplace room box, which is going to be all lit up, and it barely fits, just barely. I can't even get it. I can barely get my finger in between the top of the room box and the upper shelf. Now I don't want to put it on the top shelf because then people can't actually look in very easily, but this is at a little bit lower than my eye level, so that looks good. So I think I'm just going to start filling up these shelves, see how much I have to display, and go from there. Another reason I like to do a practice setup with absolutely everything on the table is because as I add more kits or more examples, such as this year I'm adding the fireplace room and I'm adding the 1/48 scale boathouse, I need to see how that's looking. I need to make sure it makes sense. I need to make sure there's a space for everything. And it's at this point I'm realizing I really need to put up that third shelf. I really need the space, although I don't know where it's going to come from. So I started turning the shelves on an angle, and I was hoping I could maybe fit everything in if I did that, because I still needed to display the boathouse and I still needed to display the small finished miniatures, which I have like a little separate smaller shelf for that. And while I was doing this, the dogs were absolutely losing their mind over this clump of brown leaves in the backyard. They kept running outside, barking, because they thought it was a squirrel, and then they would just nonchalantly walk away like, nothing happened, nothing to see here. I wasn't fooled by a pile of brown leaves. It was entertaining. So I just added the third shelf, and I turned everything at an angle. And I'm actually kind of liking it. And the reason I'm liking it is because it gives me this flat panel on the side where I could possibly put some of these pegboards on. And then whatever 3D printed kits correlate with this room, I know it looks like a mess. It'll be sorted out for the show. Whatever items correlate with this room will go here on the side. And so people can look and shop. And then same for over here, whatever kits like the chandelier, the crates, the bird cage, whatever correlates with this room, they can shop here. I think that might work. And I know this shelf is looking empty, but I have a friend who made a finished version of the boathouse, and so she's bringing that to the show. And then I have the gingerbread house, and then I have some other kits that I can display, that I need to display on this shelf. So all three shelves, there's plenty to fill up all three shelves. And if you're wondering why I have to have both versions of the empty and the completely finished, well, it's not finished on the outside, but why I have both is because I have two different types of shoppers. I have shoppers that come up and they want to imagine their own project inside of this room. They see a living room, they see an apartment, they see a shop, they see something totally different. And then I have other shoppers who want to see an example of what can this room be, and I have it as a kitchen. And that's why I wanted to create a finished version of the fireplace room. I've had the unfinished version for a while, but people can just imagine all sorts of things in the empty room. And then they can see an example of what it can be. And then I have the finished attic room along with the empty. So it's been working really well. It just takes up twice the storage space than it actually needs to if I could just bring one. Once I had everything on a shelf that I liked, I don't know why, but I decided to mirror the entire table. And I don't really have a great reason that makes sense, it's just a feeling that I had. I wanted everything swapped. So I carefully moved the shelves to the right side of the table, and then I started to work on the pegboard. Thankfully, my pegboard was already cut to almost the perfect shape for the sides of the shelves, and I could just use a couple small zip ties to attach them to the side. And what was really nice is that later when I folded the shelves back up, it all fit in the box without me having to take the pegboards off. So here are the little cubbies that I mentioned that I show my individual kits. So these are kits that don't necessarily have a home in a room box yet. I'm hoping eventually everything will have a room box that it goes inside of. But as you can see, I'm kind of adding some half scale items in there. And before I had everything mixed up, I had 1/12 scale and 1/24 scale inside this room. However, for this year, I thought I am going to make 1/24 scale its own little display and separate out all of my different scales, especially since I'm starting to dabble in 1/48. Now I've had this little vignette room on my table. I don't think it's been in my store, but I've had it on my table for a while. I had one that was a sample, so I decided to build another one and then make a stair-step display that will have all of the 1/24 scale items displayed in it. So now in these little bamboo sectional boxes, I only have 1/12 scale kits. And then if you pan over, I have the 1/24 scale kits in their own little cubbies being displayed for anyone who's specifically interested in that scale. And once I got to the show, I think that worked out so well. People could really shop the scale that they were interested in without having to look all over the place. Right after I had finished working on the 1/24 scale display, my sister arrived, and she was really helpful in laying out some of the pegboard, trying to figure out what fit where, and then helping me with the lighting as well. Lighting is so important at a miniature show because everything is detailed, right? Lots of details. My sister's such a trooper with me in the camera. But we got everything laid out, we took pictures, and doing this takes all of the decision-making process out of the equation when you start setting up at the actual show, which makes things go so much faster. Off camera, my sister helped me pack most of everything up, and then we put it off to the side in a finished pile, basically finished to go out the door, so we knew everything was ready. And because I had a few more items I needed my desktop for, I rearranged the space so I could actually get to it. Most everything is packaged up, boxed, ready to be put into a car and taken to the show. I do have a couple more things I need to do. For the fireplace room, I wanted to, this may be a risky move, but I did recently get some gold rub and buff and I've never used it before. I had a few comments on the last video when I was working in the fireplace room that they felt like the desk needed some gold details, and I completely agree. I just hope I don't mess it up right before the show. But I do think the desk, with everything else that's going on in that room, the desk is looking a little lackluster. So I want to try it out. I also need to make a display for my toothpick birds. But other than that, I'm actually feeling very prepared. More prepared than I have in the past. At the last few shows, I've shown up flustered and with like tags for things that still needed to be attached to the kits. And all the kits are created. So I think starting back in April to create everything was very beneficial. All right, so let's do those last final projects before I pack everything up and go to Dallas. I am open to any and all suggestions you might have for working with this product. Rub and Buff is a wax, and I did not expect it to just go all over the place when I first was going to start using it. Thankfully, it did not get over the chair, and this is why this is such a big risk to try and do right before a show onto a showpiece. But this apparently did not deter me. I was going to try it out anyway. But if you have any experience with using this product, I would love to hear your comments and suggestions in the comments on this video. I tried a couple different ways to apply the gold. I wanted it mostly to be on the feet and any of the decorative pieces. I first used a Q-tip, but it was just really starting to pull apart and it wasn't very pleasant to use. So then I went to a paper towel. I did a couple quick searches for videos on how to use this product, and it was mostly on larger objects, but a lot of people were using a lint-free cloth or a paper towel to apply it. However, I did recently see a Queen City Minis video where she used a brush. She just advised to use a paintbrush that you don't care about and you don't care if it gets ruined. So I may try that in the future. But if you have something that works really well for applying this to miniatures, I'd love to hear. Let me know. I do really like how it came out, and I think it added that extra oomph that the desk needed to really stand out within the fireplace room. So I'm glad I went for it. Next, I'm going to build the little stand I was talking about for the toothpick birds. Now, I call them toothpick birds because they have a little indentation underneath their body that fits perfectly onto a toothpick. So the best way to display them is to display them on a toothpick. I designed this very simple stand out of MDF, and it just has a groove at the top to hold the toothpick where I can install the birds. And I probably should have painted the stand after I saw it on my display at the table at the show. I was like, oh, maybe I should have painted this, but I will do that at a later date. I wanted to leave the birds in their raw, unpainted form so people could see what they were actually getting, and I did place them onto the display off-center. Well, at first they just kept falling off, so I did the trick where you can add some super glue along with the PVA glue, which is the wood glue that I'm using, and then it cures almost instantly, and you don't have to worry about the birds falling off while you're waiting for the glue to dry. So I did put them off center on purpose. I just think birds look cute kind of sitting off center on their perch, and that is going to be it for my stand. That is also a wrap for all the preparations. These are all the boxes filled with the kits I've been working on. I decided to transport my displays in IKEA bags because I don't have the right size box to protect them. I have all of my large kits finished. They just keep going on forever and ever. I have my admin stuff, my table display, covers, lights. I have my empty displays. So as you can see, it ends up being a lot of stuff that now needs to fit in my car. So I guess that's everything. It feels weird being done this early, but I do still have to pack myself. I want to go get some snacks. I have some orders to drop off at the post office, so I still have some more stuff to do, but the majority of everything is ready. And so the next clip that you'll see, I'll be at the show. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton of video to show you from the show itself because it was busy. It was so busy, but that was a wonderful problem to have as a vendor. It was a great show for me, for my table, for my store, and I really had a lot of fun. So just know that the lack of video is not because there wasn't anything to film, it's because I was constantly doing things. This year, I was only able to get away long enough to film one of my neighbor's tables, which was T's Miniatures. They had some beautifully detailed kitchen and bathroom items. I really enjoyed looking over their selection, and I unfortunately just could not get away from my booth to film anybody else. But I was able to get some video of some displays. So I don't know if they do this at all miniature shows, but I know that the Dallas show has always had displays from different clubs, different individuals who have wanted to display something they've worked on that year, and I just love getting to see all of the creativity. And oftentimes it's clubs that worked on a very similar project, so you get to see kind of the same base, but done in multiple different ways. And whenever I talk about miniature clubs or miniature get-togethers, I always have people state there's nothing around me. I feel like I don't have anyone else in my area that works on miniatures. And so I'm going to leave a link for the free miniaturist directory down in the description box on this video. It is a great way to look around in your area and see if there is anything available. And if not, maybe you could start something up, or at least put your information out there, whatever information you're comfortable sharing, to let other people know in your area that there are miniaturists around. I will also leave a link for the Society of American Miniaturists down below. This is a club. It's mostly based in Texas, but if you're in any of the surrounding states or you're willing to fly in, they have multiple events during the year, and this one is advertising a free event coming up to all members where you get a project and you get to hang out for the day. So it's a really, really fun club to be a part of. And what you're seeing here, the little carts that everyone has put together, is a result of the last free event they had. They call it a birthday party. They have it every single year. The last club I'm going to show you is the Dallas Miniature Guild, and each person did a different living room from a family sitcom or TV show. So some of them are pretty easy to guess because they have the names of them on there, but I will put the names in the description box if you want to guess, or if you want to see if you got them all right. Unfortunately, that is all the video I have from the showcase. I did not think through the fact that my phone was my recording device and also my point of sale at my table. And because there was such a steady stream of people coming by the table, I couldn't get very far to film some of the other people. But I do hope you enjoyed the displays that I was able to take video of. I was able to do that before the show opened. I do have a very small haul to share with you, so I will do that now. These first two pieces were from a brand new vendor. She said this was her first show. From LG Shop Finds, I ended up purchasing these pressed flower displays. So they were all done in a really beautiful frame, and they are real pressed flowers. I had just never seen anything like this before, and it really caught my eye. I thought they were so beautiful. I got these two different designs, and I felt like they were very reasonably priced as well. My next purchase was from Pure Fantasy Castles, and this was a bunch of quarter scale furniture. I'm just now getting into quarter scale. I'm just now trying to learn it and really get a feel for the scale. I think a lot of times when you go into a new scale, it takes some time. It takes having a few pieces in your collection to really understand it and be able to see it. So I was glad to pick up these pieces. I think most of the pieces were around $4 for the unpainted pieces, and I think it's just gonna be a great way to start my collection and start being able to work in quarter scale and not feel like I have to make every single thing from scratch. And I went ahead and took a moment right now to go ahead and put them away since they are all so small. My next purchase was from Big River Miniatures, which you may remember from my Chicago vlog. Unfortunately, I don't have video of her table, but she has the most eye-catching pieces that are all from artists in Colombia, Peru, and Brazil. And what initially caught my eye was this little bird stool. And it's like a little stool where you can sit. I just think it's so beautifully carved. So you may remember I purchased a ton of birds from this vendor for Charles' office in the Beetlejuice house. And I don't know if this is where this bird sculpture will go, but I thought it was amazing. And I also got this little bowl. And you can see video on Big River Miniatures Instagram page of how this bowl is being made with the techniques used in that region. Techniques that have been used for years on real life-size bowls, and they're now making them in miniature, which I just think is so cool. So definitely check out Big River Miniatures. My friend at Mini Southern Millworks gifted me this beautiful clock. So gorgeous. It's black with metal details on the sides, and Mario always marks his pieces with the year. So I do have one from last year, from 2024, and now I have the 2025 clock. And I was thinking I might display them together, but then I thought This would be a perfect clock to go in Charles and Delia's room in the Beetlejuice house. I really think Delia would love the metallic details and the black on the clock. So that's where this piece is going to go. So thank you so much, Mario, for this gift. And here is Mario's information if you want to look up the other amazing things that he makes. And then I also met another new dealer. I love that there were so many new dealers this year. And she gifted me this 1/24 scale pin. And her store is opening August 1st with a wall house in 1/24. So definitely go check that out if you get a chance. I was also given a few gifts at the show. I want to make sure and say thank you. So this was from Glenn and Brenda. They gave me these really fun maroon couches and a chair with a skull on top. You know, I love my skeletons. And I think these cameos would look so cool in the Fairfield. I also received this gift from Charmed Collector. I will put her Instagram on screen. She also printed and painted these Beetlejuice houses. And at first I thought, you know, I'd hide them somewhere in the Beetlejuice house. They're from before and after Delia. But then I was thinking they would make really cool earrings. Really cool earrings. So I'm gonna have to think about what I'm going to do with these, but they are so fun. I also received some furniture and a fireplace from Maggie. You know, I love my furniture, so I'm so excited to find something to do with these, a place to put them. I may repaint them to look like leather. I'm not quite sure yet. And then this wonderful small tea set with so many pieces included. Maggie also encouraged me to try Shrinky Dink paper. So she gifted me a few sheets of that. Let me know in the comments if you use Shrinky Dinks and what you use them for in miniatures, because I would love to try it out. Thank you so much, everyone, for the very kind gifts. Thank you so much to everyone who came up and said hello. I enjoyed meeting all of you and talking about miniatures, and I'm already looking forward to next year. Now that the miniature show is over, I'm excited to get back into Beetlejuice and back into some of my regular videos. Honestly, recently I really haven't been feeling like myself, and I'm just ready. Oh, that's better. Whew, I just needed to sneeze. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. You're gonna say something as soon as I start talking.
What? I wasn't gonna say anything.
Okay. You're just gonna make a noise?
How did you know?
Did you make a noise?
That was your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't even me.
Did you believe that sneeze? So I'm gonna try it again. I'll try to do more realistic. Don't watch. It's embarrassing. Well, that's the end, because now I have to go get my haircut.